Do we have it set? Do we have it set so we can share screen?
You should be able to, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So go ahead and. Okay. Okay. Let Erik do it. Don't read it for him.
Okay. All right, Mr. Erik, it's all you. Okay. You guys ready? Okay. In our study of American history, we've been reading the book Before Christopher Columbus by Charles.
Oh, Deidre and Erik, you guys are breaking up and fuzzing out.
Oh man, our internet is goofy. Are we still? Let me wiggle the Wi-Fi card on the back of the computer here.
Now we hear you. It just cut out when Erik was talking.
Okay, so Erik, try talking a little slower, okay? Okay. All right, let's start again. In our study of American history, we've been reading the book Before Christopher Columbus by Charles Mann. Today, I'm going to tell you some of the things I learned. There you go. When people talk about the Old World and the New World, this is what they mean. The Old World is Europe, Africa, and Asia. The New World is the Americas. Our history is told from the point of view of the people from Europe. They didn't know anything about the other side of the world before Columbus made his discovery. They thought everything was all new with no history of its own. Guys, in the middle, after each one, I'm going to give you time to ask questions. Yeah. So you didn't quite finish this one. They thought everything was new, but they were definitely wrong. Okay. The Old World was in the Old World, the oldest cities were built in Samaria. For a long time, people thought that these were the oldest cities in the world. It turns out that people in the Atacama Desert in the South America were building cities at least as early as the ones in Samaria, maybe even earlier. The New World is actually really old. Even the oldest mummies in the world come from the Americas. What do you think of that mummy, guys?
Oh, this gives me the creeps.
Do you see the face? Nose, mouth?
Eyeball, no eyeballs.
Hey, Erik. There's this book about mummies from Egypt. A mummy that wasn't as old as him. You know the story of Joseph, right? And the pharaoh. They found that exact evil pharaoh, and he was more rotten like that. His flesh was any bandages. You could see worms and maggots on his eyes.
Wow. Pretty cool. All right, Erik, I think we're ready for the next slide. Yeah, ready. Just a minute. When people think of it, when we think of things like the invention of writing and math, we think they come from the Old World. That's not all the way true. People who created civilizations in Mesoamerica discovered a lot of important things. Some of their discoveries happened before anybody else in the world had figured them out. The Maya people were the first people to discover the number 0. This let them create calendars that were super accurate. These people were so advanced, they could build cities in places where people should not have been able to live, like saltwater swamps. Learning about the Maya city, Chichen Itza, has been my favorite part of this book. Next slide. Another ancient American group shows just how cool the history of the New World really was in the Inca Empire. These people built the biggest empire on Earth. Nobody had more land or power than they did. The empire started at the ocean and went all the way up to the top of the Andes Mountains. This meant that everyone living everywhere in the empire could have all the different foods and resources available from a lot of different climates and places. They built the city of Cusco on top of a mountain. Yeah, that's misspelled. It's okay. On top of a mountain. It was so cool. They carried pure white sand up from the ocean line to the city, so all the floors and streets could be white and sparkly. And then they covered the walls of buildings with gold and silver to make it shine like the sun. It must have been amazing. In 1533, the Incan Empire was quickly and easily taken over by the Spanish. By the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro. One leader with only a few hundred soldiers took down tens of thousands of soldiers and the biggest empire on earth. Here's the big question. How did they lose? What do you think?
What do you think, Daryl?
I'm not sure.
What did the Spanish have that the Inca did not?
Metal weapons.
Let me read this part and then you guys can guess, okay? The Native Americans built huge cities and had powerful armies. They were experts at war. How did the Europeans succeed in taking them down? Let's find out. What do you guys think that the Incan Empire lost?
So what made the Incans lose when they had such a big empire?
They had the biggest
They didn't have any armor. No armor, and their weapons are wood.
They were pretty good at fighting, but you're right, they didn't have any armor. It can be any of these horses, guns, any of the question marks, or any other ones. What do you think?
Well, it sounds like James thinks armor. What do you think, Jared? Did you have a guess?
The wooden guns. I'm thinking guns.
You're thinking guns. The Native Americans did not have guns, so the Spanish were able to conquer them.
What do you think, Cameron?
Well, I think it was probably a combination, but I think I know the answer. Do you want me to throw it out there, or do you want to go to the next slide?
What if Cameron knows the right answer? Do you want him to spoil it, or do you want him to wait?
Mommy.
Okay.
How about we wait and we'll ask Cameron at the end if this is what he was thinking.
Mommy.
Good idea.
Can we put that our house?
Nope, not that. Not that.
You want, calm down. There we go.
Okay. In Mesoamerica, there was a huge city built in the middle of a lake. It was called Tenochtitlan. It was built by the people of the Triple Alliance. Nowadays, we call them the Aztec. This city was bigger and more amazing than anything in Europe. When the Spanish came in 1519, they couldn't believe their eyes. This city had a huge, fierce army. It was protected by water all the way around. The only way in or out was over big bridges called causeways. The first time the Spanish, led by Hernan Cortez, tried to take over the city, it only took one night for the local people to kick them out. Cortez wasn't about to give up, though. He went around to other cities nearby and found allies to help him. There were lots of people who didn't like being bossed around by the Triple Alliance, and they were happy to help bring them down. With the help of his new allies and mostly destroying the city, Cortez was able to finally conquer Tenochtitlan, Tenochtitlan. What he didn't know was the most important allies were actually invisible. Who do you think the invisible allies were?
Who do you think, Daryl? Were they the invisible dragons?
I don't know.
What do you think, James? Who are these invisible helpers that help the Spanish win?
The guys coming from the big bridge on top of the temple.
What?
Those are good guesses.
What did you say, James?
He's looking at the picture, and behind that temple is like a rainbow bridge. People are coming down.
Oh. Might be.
The weather, maybe, I don't know.
The roads and bridges in this picture look funny because at the time it was painted, people didn't completely understand depth and how to paint things far away. So they look like they're going up into the sky, but it's really just bridges going out across the lake. All right, should we keep going and find out who the invisible allies were, Eric? Let Eric get a drink real quick. All this talking makes your throat dry. Okay, all right. Ready for your next slide, kiddo. Okay.
Let's find the invisible allies first.
Big reveal.
I'll give you a minute to read this.
It's okay. They can read one.
Okay. Before we can learn about these invisible allies, we need to know a few things about where Native Americans came from. How they got here. Most of Native Americans in all North and South America came across from Asia. Scientists think that during the Great Ice Ages, there was land bridges. There was a land bridge called Beringia between what is now Russia and Alaska. People followed migrating animals across the land bridge and down between two big ice sheets and into the rest of the Americas. They used to think all of the people came at the same time, but now we know that they came in several different groups. Some may have even sailed in boats down the coast instead of walking. Even though there were many different groups and cultures of people in the Americas, we know that most of them came from a few small groups of ancestors. Another important thing is to know that Native Americans have almost no domesticated animals. When people first started arriving from Asia, the Americans had lots of megafauna. Megafauna is the scientific word for big animals. There were things like woolly mammoths, saber-toothed cats, beavers that weighed 500 pounds, 2 kinds of camels, 3 different kinds of horses. Around the same time that people started coming, the big animals started disappearing. Nobody knows why. Some people think that the people hunted the animals to extinction. This is called the overkill theory. Some people think that changing climate killed the animals. Either way, it made so that there weren't any animals for the people to live and work with. And in some ways, this made life harder for the Native Americans. But it also meant they didn't have to share germs with animals. A lot of diseases come from animals, including things like the flu and the measles. Native Americans have a lot less diseases than people in the old world who live near animals, pigs, sheep, cows.
Can I give you my theory?
Sure.
Climate change, because all those animals were super thick and meant for the ice age, but when everything started melting, it was probably getting too hot for them and they started dying because of the heat. But it could be the overkill theory, because near here they found like 2 or 3 mammoth skeletons with human skeletons by them, and their humans had like weapons. Skeletons, all of them.
Wouldn't it be cool to be able to go back in time and find out for sure?
Yeah, I'd probably just ride away on a mammoth, or at least protect the mammoth, so in the future, mammoths would still be alive.
Yep. All right, should we go to the next slide? There we go.
Remember how Native Americans come from only a few different ancestors? That means the DNA has lots of the same stuff. Humans have these things. That means that the things called HLAs that help catch germs and kick them out of our cells. The HLA fits together with viruses like puzzle pieces. The more different shapes of HLA a person has, the better they are able to fight a bunch of different diseases. Native Americans only have a few kinds of HLAs, so they have a much harder time fighting germs. Because Native Americans didn't live around animals, they had a lot less sickness. This seems awesome, but maybe it is not. How easily could they get sickness? Wait,
How easily they could.
how easily they could get sick ended up being the thing that made them so easy to conquer. Millions of native people died. The whole cities and cultures wiped out. Remember those invisible allies? Those were germs.
That's what I thought.
That was what you thought, Uncle Cameron?
That's what I thought.
Good guess.
Okay. Early Native Americans created societies that were bigger, older, and more complicated than we used to think. They built pyramids before the Egyptians. They invented corn. They changed the land to make it produce the food they needed and to make space for their cities. The history of Americas before Christopher Columbus is still being discovered. What we do know is that it is so much cooler than we ever thought it could be.
All right, way to go, Eric. And there we go.
Yeah. How do you guys like it?
That was
Good.
awesome. Good
Yeah.
job, Eric.
Does anybody have any questions for Eric?
Yeah, Jerry, you need to come up with a few questions from what you listened and heard. Huh?
Any questions, James?
Was that pyramid it showed early in the beginning the one from Mexico?
You mean,
The first pyramid it showed in your slideshow.
This one.
oh, yeah, that is Chichen Itza.
Chichen
The pyramid from pyramid from Mexico.
Was that a picture? Was that picture with the Native Americans fighting the mammoth? Was that real or not?
No,
Okay.
that was a painting.
Native Americans really did hunt mammoths, but there were not any cameras back then, so nobody could take pictures. It's just what an artist imagined it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good imagination there, huh?
Yeah.
I see that.
Hey, Eric. Eric, why do they call them the Clovis people, the Clovis point?
Do you remember?
No.
Where was it found?
I can't remember. Oh, New Mexico.
Really?
One of them said
All
Nevada.
this stuff comes from New Mexico, huh?
One of them said Nevada.
Well, the Clovis thing came from Clovis, New Mexico, which is why they're known as the Clovis people.
What other one was from Nevada?
If any came from Nevada, then it'd be named after where it was found in Nevada. But Eric talked about the Clovis people, and they're the Clovis people because their artifacts were found at Clovis, New Mexico.
I was just saying that there was one for Nevada.
Yes, there was.
Yes. So when we talk about the Clovis people, if you focus on the New Mexico bit, that can be confusing because the first spear points like that were found in Clovis, New Mexico. But then once scientists understood how old they were and what they were looking at, they realized that there were other spearheads made by the same group of people all over the place. All over what's now the United States, you find Clovis points. So there probably were Clovis people in Nevada, but the first Clovis point ever found was in New Mexico. All right, I think James has a question for you.
What?
I was gonna ask, but I was just randomly gonna ask Marquette Mowers thing when they're coming to Christmas, because I made a few presents.
You don't know just yet, James. Probably on Friday or Saturday. So, Erik, did you learn about how the early people hunted the mammoths and the mastodons?
I don't think we did.
Not sure what you're referencing. We learned some stuff like that.
So one of the reasons they think that they contributed to the extinction of the mammoths is that they found these mass kill sites.
Is what?
I think our internet disconnected for a minute. Can you say that again?
The reason that they think that the early people contributed to the extinction of megafauna is because they found a lot of mass kill sites with lots of mammoth and mastodon bones. And they were always at the foot of cliffs. And so what they think the early people would do is
push the mammoths off cliffs.
You did learn about that then, huh?
Not in this, but I watched a show on National Geographic on live TV somewhere. I can't remember.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting, huh?
Yeah, why don't they just shove a spearhead through its heart or something?
Well, remember that picture we looked at? How big was the mammoth compared to the people?
Oh, really big.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to go enough to stab one of those guys. That's for fun. Yep. Interestingly, though, Cameron, this book talks about how they did a survey of, I think it was 60 archaeological sites that were like campsites or villages of those Paleo Indians. And only 2 of the 60 campsites had evidence of hunting.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so they're like, there's these big kill sites, but then you look at their villages and there's very little sign of animal remains or hunting implements or anything like that. So they're like, I don't know, the evidence could go either way. It's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're looking for a good book to read, the one we read is the kid version. Hey, Erik, can you turn that off, please, for just a minute? I wanted to show Cameron a book and he can't see me anymore. Remember I said we weren't doing this today. Okay, so this is the kid version. But the author actually wrote one. The first version he wrote is for adults, and it's enormous. And it's one of the most fascinating things I've ever read.
You should get it.
And yeah, it's super cool. So I've been reading the adult version while he's been reading the kid version. And it's really, really fascinating stuff. Yep. So anyways, is there anything else we want to talk about, or just turn it over to the boys for a little fun chat time?
I think we could do for some chat time.
All right, well, let me pause.
Yeah, I can do it.
No, thank you.
Erik, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.